I never thought the end would come on an ordinary evening. There was no warning, no thunderstorm to mark the collapse, no alarm, only the soft hum of the dryer and the faint smell of chicken broth drifting from the kitchen. I was folding Marcus's old shirts, careful with every crease, when Clara's voice shattered the air. "You ruined everything." Her words echoed down the hallway, sharp as glass, slicing through the silence. At first, I thought I had misheard her. Maybe she was yelling at Eliza, or maybe at Marcus. But then her heels clicked across the kitchen tiles and I knew she was coming for me. I stepped into the hallway, still holding the shirt, and there they were. A row of faces, lined up like soldiers in a battle I never agreed to fight. Clara stood at the front, silk robe tied tight around her waist, her face red and glistening. She held a stack of papers in her hand like they were proof of my crimes. Behind her stood Marcus, my son, arms crossed, mouth set in the same stubborn line I had seen since he was a boy. Eliza leaned against the wall, arms folded, a cruel smile playing on her lips. Vanessa lounged on the sofa in the living room, her phone in one hand, smirk in place as if she had been waiting for this performance all week. My throat went dry. What did I do? My voice was steady, though my chest felt like it might crack open. Eliza laughed, a sound more mocking than amused. "Do not act like you do not know. You opened your mouth and now everything is ruined." I glanced at Marcus, searching for a flicker of kindness. He looked away, choosing silence over loyalty. Clara stepped forward, the silk of her robe brushing against her legs. "Everything we built is collapsing," she hissed, "because you could not keep quiet during a phone call." A phone call. My mind raced, grasping for the memory. Then it came, slow and heavy, like water flooding a sinking ship. A week earlier, the clinic had called with routine questions. They asked about who lived in the house, about income, about the way bills were paid. I had answered truthfully. Marcus was on disability, but he picked up side jobs now and then. I had said it casually, the way people speak when they have nothing to hide. My lips parted. I had not thought it mattered. "No." Marcus's voice cracked the air, sharp, final. "You did not think. That has always been your problem." I felt my knees weaken, the shirt slipping from my hand. Vanessa leaned back on the couch, her grin widening. "Well, Jordan finally gets her little spotlight." Clara shoved the papers toward me, her perfume burning in my nose. "Do you realize what you did?" Those words, that careless slip, it was reported. Now everything is frozen, his benefits, our support, all because you could not keep your mouth shut. I tried to speak, but Eliza cut in, her voice dripping with scorn. "You have always been a problem." Always. Something clattered on the floor. I turned and saw her pick up a slipper and hurl it at the wall beside me. It landed with a dull thud, close enough to sting without touching me. "Get out." Her voice trembled with fury, but her eyes glittered with satisfaction. Clara nodded, her mouth twisted into a grim smile. "You will not spend another night in this house. The decision was made. No trial, no defense, just sentence and exile." I walked slowly toward my small room at the back of the house, near the humming laundry machines. No one followed. No one tried to stop me. Their voices rose behind me, a chorus of accusations and celebration. They sounded relieved, as if they had rehearsed this moment and were glad it was finally here. In my room, I sat on the edge of the narrow bed, the walls pressing in on me. I looked around at my belongings stacked in plastic bins because the closet had always been filled with Clara's winter coats and Eliza's extra shoes. My space had never been mine, not really. It had been tolerated, a corner of a house where I was expected to be invisible. My hands shook as I packed. I chose carefully: a coat, my purse, my pills, a few folded clothes. I slipped my photo album into the bag, the one with pictures of Marcus as a boy, smiling with missing teeth, before his silence became sharper than words. I zipped the bag slowly. The sound was final, a line drawn across the years of compromise and sacrifice. When I opened the door, the hallway stretched before me, dimly lit. Liam stood there, half in shadow, earbuds dangling around his neck. 17 years old, tall and thin, his face pale under the flickering light. He did not speak. He did not move, he only watched. I stopped, my bag heavy on my shoulder. "I am leaving," I whispered. He nodded once, his eyes flickering with something I could not name. Pain, maybe, fear, or perhaps the quiet knowledge that he had already seen this ending coming. I walked past him down the hallway. Eliza's laughter drifted from her room. Clara's voice carried from the kitchen, low and triumphant. Marcus sat in the living room, staring at the television without seeing it. No one called my name. I opened the front door. The cold night air rushed in, crisp and sharp against my face. I stepped outside, the world vast and indifferent. One bag, no car, no plan. And still I walked away. The street outside was quiet except for the sound of my own footsteps. I clutched the bag tighter against my side as though anyone might snatch it away, though there was nothing inside worth stealing. A few clothes, a photo album, medicine bottles rattling against each other. My whole life had been reduced to the weight of a single shoulder strap. I walked without knowing where I was going. The night air carried the scent of wet pavement and exhaust fumes. Somewhere a dog barked, unanswered. The houses around me glowed with warm light through curtain windows, families gathered inside, laughter spilling across walls. I kept walking, invisible, unnoticed, as though I had never belonged to any house at all. When I finally reached the bus stop at the end of the block, I sat on the cold metal bench and waited. I did not cry. My eyes burned, but the tears would not come. Crying would have felt like surrender, and I had already surrendered enough. A bus groaned up to the curb. The driver barely looked at me as I climbed aboard, dropped a few coins into the box, and slid into a seat near the back. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A handful of strangers scattered through the bus, their faces blank with fatigue. No one spoke. No one noticed me. The bus rattled through streets I had known for years, but everything looked different from this angle. For decades I had driven to work, to the grocery store, to the school where Marcus once played basketball in the gym. Tonight, I was only a passenger in the city I once thought was mine. I got off near the old nail salon where the rent was cheap and the walls thin. I had seen a sign weeks earlier that said studio for rent in fading letters. At the time I thought nothing of it. Now it felt like a door I had been blind to until I had no choice but to walk through. The landlord barely asked questions. Cash up front. 1 month, maybe 2. He handed me a key that stuck when I tried to turn it, metal grinding against metal. The room smelled faintly of mildew, but it was mine. Mine in a way that nothing had been for years. The furniture was sparse. A metal bed frame, a thin mattress, a crooked dresser leaning to the right. I placed my bag on the floor and unpacked slowly. Each item felt heavy with memory. The photo album slid beneath the bed. The pills lined up on the nightstand. My coat hung from the back of a chair that wobbled when I touched it. I wrote a single word on a scrap of paper and taped it above the sink. Breathe. For the first time in years, I lay down without waiting for footsteps in the hallway, without listening for Clara's voice dripping with contempt, without Eliza's laughter piercing through thin walls. The quiet was almost unbearable. Silence can be cruel when you are used to chaos. It presses against your ears, fills your chest with weight. The first nights I barely slept. I stared at the ceiling, at a water stain shaped like a crooked heart, and listened to the muffled sounds of life from the salon below. The buzz of dryers, the chatter of women, the clatter of nail tools against metal trays. It was not home, but it was not hostile. That was enough. I found myself replaying the evening of my exile in my mind over and over. The slipper slamming against the wall, Marcus refusing to meet my eyes, Liam's silence in the hallway. His nod. That small nod haunted me more than the shouts. It was the look of someone who understood too much for his age. Every morning I woke early, not because I needed to, but because my body remembered decades of rising before everyone else. I made instant oatmeal, folded towels I had bought from the dollar store, and wiped down counters that did not need wiping. Habits from a life of service clung to me like shadows. I was still trying to be useful even in a place where no one asked anything of me. I told myself this exile was temporary. Perhaps Marcus would call. Perhaps Clara would cool down. Perhaps Eliza would realize her cruelty. Perhaps Vanessa would find a new target. I carried these maybes like pebbles in my pocket, heavy but familiar. Weeks passed. No call came. I should have been grateful. I had asked for peace and I had received it. Yet silence has a way of echoing louder than voices. At night I picked up my phone, scrolling through my contacts, hovering over Liam's name. I never pressed call. He had stayed quiet during the storm. I did not want to pull him into it. But I thought of him, always. The boy in the hallway, earbuds hanging, eyes watching. The only one who had not raised his voice against me. On the 28th day after I left, my phone began to buzz. At first just once, then again, then over and over. 50 missed calls in one night. Clara, Marcus, even Eliza. My voicemail filled with messages I could not bring myself to open. One text stood out, blinking at me in the dim light of the studio. "Mom, please, it is about Liam." My chest tightened. Not an apology, not regret, just desperation. I did not answer. Not that night. Instead, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the crooked heart on the ceiling and whispered to the silence. Breathe. The second month in that studio felt like a long winter, even though the calendar said it was still early spring. The walls were thin enough to let in every sound from the nail salon downstairs, but at night the silence crept back, thick and heavy. I tried to fill it with the television, playing reruns of old game shows at low volume. I told myself I was enjoying peace, but most nights I found my eyes drawn to the phone on the nightstand. I kept it face down, as if turning it over would invite them back into my life. Still, I checked it more than I wanted to admit. I counted missed calls, scrolled through names I no longer trusted. The silence of Marcus's number hurt more than Clara's accusations. For a son to vanish from his mother's life with nothing but blame in his eyes, that kind of silence carves deep. The studio had one small window above the sink, framed with peeling paint. Most mornings I stood there with a cup of instant coffee, staring at the alley below. Stray cats prowled between trash bins, neighbors carried groceries, cars honked as if the world outside had not noticed my collapse. I would tell myself it was enough. A roof, a bed, the absence of voices raised against me. That should be enough, but the truth sat heavier each day. I was not wanted, not needed, not even remembered. They had not asked where I went after I walked out. They had not asked if I had a place to sleep. They had only called when their lives cracked open and they needed something from me. I thought often of Liam, his face in the hallway the night I left, his silence. That nod, the way his hands twitched at his sides like he wanted to say something but could not. He was the only one who had not spit words like knives. I wondered if he thought of me at all. The buzzing of my phone grew relentless. First a handful of calls, then dozens, sometimes 50 in one day. Clara, Marcus, even Eliza, her name flashing across the screen with a boldness that made my stomach clench. I did not answer. Not once. Each ring felt like bait on a hook, meant to drag me back into a role I had finally escaped. One Sunday morning, the phone lit up again. I almost ignored it, but the name on the screen froze me. Eliza, I let it ring out and a voicemail appeared. My thumb hovered before I pressed play. Grandma, please, her voice cracked unsteady. He is missing. Liam is gone. We cannot find him, just call back if you hear anything. Please, the words struck like a blade. Missing. Gone. My heart pounded so hard I thought the neighbors below would hear it. I replayed the message 3 times, the sound of her fear mingling with my own. Every possibility raced through my mind. Had he run away? Had he been taken? Was he wandering the streets with no coat, no plan, the way I had been that night? I wanted to call back immediately, but I stopped myself. They had lied before. They had twisted truth into weapons. Why should I trust them now? That night I did not sleep. I lay on the mattress, eyes locked on the ceiling stain, counting the cracks in the plaster as if numbers could calm me. Each sound outside jolted me. Footsteps, car doors slamming, the rattle of a dumpster lid. Every noise became Liam in danger, calling out in the dark. By morning, my phone was buried beneath a towel in the drawer. I told myself I would not check it again. But the silence was worse than the buzzing. It clawed at me until I gave in, pulled the phone out, and turned it on. 17 missed calls, 3 new voicemails, a handful of texts, all saying the same words. He is missing. He left a note. We do not know where he is. Please call us. I scrolled through them, numb. Please call us. Please call us. As if the same mouths that had thrown me out now believed I was their savior, I pressed play on one of the voicemails. Clara's voice filled the room, brittle and frantic. Jordan, if he comes to you, you have to tell us. He is in danger. You cannot keep him from us. This is serious. Serious. The word echoed, as though nothing else before had been serious. As though exile was not serious. As though humiliation and silence and years of dismissal were not serious. I almost threw the phone across the room. Instead, I called the school. The secretary hesitated when I asked about Liam, then transferred me to the counselor, a woman named Mrs. Reed. Her voice was calm but careful, as if choosing words that would not ignite further fire. Liam has been struggling, she said gently. He told me he wished he could live with you. My throat tightened. Did something happen? There was a pause, then her voice lowered. Last week he argued with his sister. She told him he was weak for defending you. She told him if he loved you so much, he should go live with you. Then she threw his things into the hallway. The image hit me with brutal clarity. Eliza's face twisted with cruelty. Clothes strewn on the floor. Liam standing there, shamed for loving me. He came to school the next day, the counselor continued, but he was quiet. Withdrawn. I told him he could always come to me if something happened. That was the last real conversation we had. I thanked her with a voice that barely worked and hung up. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped the phone. They had lied, again, not missing, not vanished into the night. They had pushed him out, just as they had pushed me. For hours I sat at the small table in my studio, staring at the phone, waiting for it to ring. It did, over and over. Clara, Marcus. Even Vanessa's number once, as if she had the right to reach me. I did not answer. Not yet. When Marcus's name lit the screen again, I pressed accept. Mom. His voice cracked, younger for a moment, like the boy who used to call me from gas stations when his car broke down. What happened? I asked, calm but cold. He is gone, Marcus said. We are doing everything we can. The police said they will file a report if he does not come back tonight. He left a note, but we do not know where he is. He did not take his phone. I let the silence hang until he continued. We thought maybe he came to you. Why would he? I asked softly. Because you are the only person he still trusts. The words cut deep. For once, truth from Marcus's mouth. If I hear from him, I said, I will let you know. Then I hung up. I held the phone long after the call ended, the screen dark in my hand. Marcus's voice still lingered in my ears, the way it cracked when he admitted Liam trusted only me. A part of me wanted to believe it was genuine, that under the weight of Clara's rage and Vanessa's whispers he was still my son, but another part of me knew better. His concern was not for me and maybe not even for Liam. It was for the way it all looked to the outside world. I could not sit still. I walked the length of the studio, from the crooked dresser to the tiny window above the sink, back and forth until my legs ached. Every step echoed with questions. Where was Liam? Was he cold, hungry, scared? Was he sleeping on a stranger's couch, walking streets I did not know, hiding in corners too dark for a boy his age? The phone rang again, unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in my gut told me to answer. Hello, I said cautiously. There was shuffling, a breath, then a young male voice I did not recognize. Is this Jordan? Yes, hold on. The sound of movement, a door creaking, and then silence before another voice came through, soft and shaky. Grandma, my knees nearly gave out. Liam, are you safe? My words rushed out before I could think. Where are you? I am with Malik. His best friend, I remembered. He let me crash here. I did not know what else to do. I did not want to go home. Relief flooded me so hard I pressed a hand against the table to steady myself. Are you hurt? Do you need anything? No. His voice cracked. Just, can I come to you? Yes. The answer left my mouth before he finished the question. Right now. There was silence, then a quiet whisper. They lied, didn't they? They told you I ran away, but they kicked me out. I closed my eyes. What happened? Eliza called me pathetic for defending you. She said if I loved you so much I should just go live with you. Then she opened my door and threw my stuff into the hallway. Clara said nothing. Vanessa laughed. Marcus told me to stop being dramatic. His voice broke on the last word. You did nothing wrong, I told him. Nothing. They just did not like that you saw them for who they are. Another pause. Then he whispered, I did not want you to leave. I wanted to say something that night, but I didn't know how. I know, I said softly. You do not have to explain. Just send me the address. I will come get you. Within minutes, a text appeared on my phone with directions. I grabbed my coat and bag without hesitation. My legs moved before fear had time to catch up. The bus ride felt endless. Every stop dragged, every passenger climbing aboard slowing me down. I kept my phone clutched in my hand, checking the screen as if he might disappear if I looked away. The city blurred past in streaks of neon and shadow. When I finally reached the corner Malik's address pointed to, my eyes scanned the row of houses until I saw him. Liam, sitting on the steps, hood pulled low over his face, a duffel bag at his feet. He looked smaller than I remembered, hunched into himself like he was trying to disappear. He stood when he saw me. For a second I thought he might break, tears spilling, words rushing. Instead he stepped forward and wrapped his arms around me. Not a quick hug, not polite, but a fierce, desperate grip that said more than words ever could. I held him tight, my throat burning. You are safe now, I whispered. We did not speak much on the bus ride back. He kept his hood up, head bent, earbuds in though no music played. I did not press him. Some silences are heavier than questions, but they are also necessary. When we stepped into my studio, he looked around, taking in the crooked dresser, the single bed, the chipped sink. This already feels better, he whispered. I made him tea with the last bag I had left. He sat at the table, hands wrapped around the mug though he barely drank. He did not mention Clara or Marcus or Eliza. He only unpacked slowly, folding clothes with a precision that mirrored my own habits, placing his phone face down on the nightstand as though it no longer existed. That night, he fell asleep almost instantly on the mattress I gave him. His chest rose and fell in steady rhythm, his face finally soft. No footsteps outside his door. No voices tearing him down, just quiet. I sat in the chair by the window and watched him breathe. For the first time since leaving that house, I did not feel alone. 2 days later, the knock came. Sharp, insistent, a rhythm that spoke of authority, not patience. I knew before I looked through the peephole. Clara stood there, her beige coat wrapped too tightly, her hair styled as though she wanted to look respectable for a performance. Beside her stood Marcus, his eyes fixed on the ground, shoulders hunched like a guilty teenager. I did not open the door at once. I let them knock again, harder this time, before I slid the chain and cracked it open. "We just want to talk," Clara said quickly, her eyes darting past me, searching for Liam. "This is not a fight," Marcus added, though he still would not meet my gaze. I stepped aside, letting them enter. They moved immediately to the small table, sitting like it was a conference room instead of my home. Clara crossed her legs, her smile practiced but hollow. "We are worried," she began. "About Liam. About how this looks." "How it looks to who?" I asked, leaning against the counter. "The school. The neighbors. Child services. He is 17, people are asking questions. And whose idea was it to throw his things into the hallway?" I asked. Clara's smile faltered. Marcus shifted in his seat. "He was acting out," Marcus muttered. "He called us abusive. You know how that sounds to people." "It sounds like he was telling the truth," I replied evenly. "He was scared. You did not like that." Clara leaned forward, voice rising. "You do not know what it is like, raising 2 kids, managing bills, dealing with a sister who never leaves, and a mother-in-law you wanted gone from day one." I finished for her. "Let us not pretend this is about Liam's well-being. This is about damage control." The silence after was thick, the only sound the faint hum of pipes in the wall. Marcus finally looked up, his eyes tired. "Is he okay? He has not answered our calls." "He is safe," I said. "And no, he does not want to go back." Clara scoffed. "He is a child. He does not get to decide. He is 17, I said firmly. "Old enough to know who breaks him and who protects him." "So what?" Clara snapped. "You think you can just keep him here? Look at this place. You live in a shoebox. Better a shoebox filled with peace than a house filled with poison." Her lips tightened. She knew she had lost this round, but her eyes promised the battle was not over. After Clara and Marcus left my apartment, the silence they carried behind them lingered like smoke. Liam came out of the bathroom with a toothbrush still in his hand. He looked at me as if he already knew who had been at the door. "Did you tell them?" he asked. "Everything they needed to hear," I replied. He nodded once, then went back to brushing his teeth as though that answer was enough. I sat at the table long after, staring at the chipped surface, tracing scratches with my fingertips. I should have felt triumphant, but all I felt was the weight of what would come next. They would not let go easily. They never had. The days that followed were uneasy. Liam went to school, but his steps were slower, his shoulders drawn tight as though he expected someone to pull him back. He came home with his hood up, his duffel bag clutched close, and I could see in his eyes that the house he had left was still with him, a shadow he could not shake off. At night, he did his homework on the table while I knitted or pretended to read. Sometimes he drew in a sketchbook he carried everywhere, pencil lines turning into faces, buildings, or small details of the studio itself. One evening he handed me a page where he had drawn the window above the sink, the crooked dresser, and 2 chairs at the table. "It looks exactly like this place," I said. "Because it feels safe," he answered quietly. That word safe caught in my chest. I realized it might be the first time he had ever used it about a place connected to me. But outside, the calls kept coming. Clara, Marcus, even Vanessa once, her voice sugary on voicemail, saying they could all work this out if I just returned Liam. I deleted the message without listening to the end. The school called too, but this time it was the counselor again, Mrs. Reed. She told me Liam had been skipping lunch, sitting alone in the art room. He told her he was fine, but she was not convinced. I promised her I would make sure he ate, though I knew food was not the issue. It was the sense of belonging, the sense of being wanted. One night, as I was washing dishes, Liam asked me something that made me stop mid-scrub. "Do you ever think they planned it?" "Planned what?" "Throwing you out, throwing me out." I dried my hands on a towel, choosing my words carefully. "I think they wanted us gone for a long time. They just needed excuses." He stared at the water dripping from the faucet. "That is what it felt like. Like they were just waiting for me to choose you so they could get rid of me too." I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that families do not plan cruelty like that, but I could not, because deep down I knew he was right. I remembered the laughter the night before I left, the way they mocked me like it was a game. I remembered Simone, Vanessa, saying the seeds were already planted. Yes, it had been planned. That realization weighed on me. For years I had convinced myself I was tolerated, even if unloved. But what if I had only been a placeholder, someone to serve until the moment came to exile me? And what if Liam had simply inherited that same sentence for daring to see me as human? I started keeping notes. I wrote down every voicemail, every text. I saved screenshots of Eliza's cruel posts online, jokes about parasites and traitors. I recorded dates and times of calls from Clara, words she had shouted through the door when she thought I was listening. At first I did it out of anger, but soon it became something else, preparation, because I knew a storm was building. It arrived one Thursday afternoon. Liam had just come home from school when the pounding on the door shook the frame. This was not Clara's polite knock. It was the sound of authority. I looked through the peephole and saw two figures I did not recognize. One wore a badge on his belt, Child Protective Services. My stomach dropped. I opened the door just enough to speak. "We received a report," the man said. "Claims that Liam is being kept here against his will." Against his will? I glanced at Liam, who stood stiff beside me, his jaw clenched, his eyes furious. I invited them in. My studio looked even smaller with their presence, but I stood tall. Liam spoke before they could begin. "I want to be here. I chose to be here." The woman with the clipboard looked at him carefully. "Did anyone force you?" "No," his voice was steady. "They forced me out. This is the only place I feel safe." The man's eyes flickered between us, then he asked me a series of questions. Was I his legal guardian? Did I provide food, shelter, access to school? I answered each one honestly. I showed them the texts, the voicemails, the screenshots, proof that Liam had not run away but had been pushed. They took notes, exchanged looks, then finally said they would follow up with a formal report. For now, Liam could stay. When the door closed behind them, Liam sank into the chair, his hands shaking. "They are trying to take me back," he whispered. "They will not," I promised. "Not while I have breath in me." But inside, I was shaking too. They had escalated, and I knew the battle ahead would not be won with promises alone. The visit from Child Services left the apartment quiet in a way that felt dangerous. Liam sat hunched over his sketchbook, pencil scratching furiously across the paper, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. He was drawing to keep from breaking. I made tea I knew he would not drink, but the ritual steadied my own hands. For the first time since I left that house, I felt hunted. They were not content with casting me aside. Now they wanted to claw back the only person who had chosen me. That night, as Liam finally fell into restless sleep, I sat awake in the chair by the window, the city humming outside. I scrolled through my phone, replaying old voicemails. Clara's voice was sharp, full of rehearsed desperation. "Jordan, this is not fair. You cannot keep him. He belongs with his family." His family? The word burned. Was I not family? Was I not the one who folded his shirts, cooked his dinners, listened when no one else did? Was I not the one who saw the quiet strength in him when the rest of them only saw a nuisance? Near midnight, a new message arrived. This time it was Eliza's voice, shaky, panicked. "You do not understand. He is lying to you. He is manipulating you. He is dangerous." I almost laughed, the sound bitter in my chest. Dangerous? Liam, who could barely raise his voice above a whisper, who flinched at slammed doors, who had been humiliated and discarded by the very people who now called him a threat. It was then that the twist revealed itself in full, not as a sudden shock, but as the final piece in a puzzle I had been avoiding. They did not lose Liam. They had given him up. The narrative of a missing child was never about finding him. It was about covering their tracks, controlling the story before the truth spilled out. And the truth was simple. He had defended me, and for that, he had been banished. The next day at school, Mrs. Reed confirmed what I already knew. She called me after Liam left for the morning, her voice low and urgent. He came to see me again. He told me they called him a traitor, that his sister told him to pack up and go live with you if he loved you so much. He said when he tried to stand his ground, his father told him to stop being dramatic. The words hit harder than any shout in that old house. Not because they surprised me, but because they proved what I had feared. It was all orchestrated. My exile had been the rehearsal. Liam's exile was the encore. When Liam came home that afternoon, I told him what Mrs. Reed had said. He did not look shocked. He only lowered his eyes and whispered, "I already told you. They wanted me gone." I touched his hand across the table. "Then let us make sure they never succeed in taking you back." That evening, I began to gather everything more carefully. Not just texts and voicemails, but witness statements, school letters, screenshots of Eliza's cruel online jokes. I printed them at the library, stacking them in a folder that grew heavier each day. I was building a wall of truth brick by brick, preparing for the fight I knew was coming. One night, as Liam drew quietly, he asked, "Do you think they will ever say sorry?" I thought about it carefully before answering. Sorry would mean admitting what they did, and I do not think they are capable of that. He nodded, eyes fixed on his sketchbook. Then I guess sorry does not matter. The simplicity of his words struck me. He was right. Sorry was useless if it came only to ease their guilt. What mattered was that he was here, breathing freely, unafraid. Still, the fear gnawed at me. What if child services came again, this time with orders I could not refuse? What if Marcus found the courage to fight not for his son, but for his pride? What if Clara's performance finally convinced someone with power? One Saturday, I walked with Liam to a legal aid office in the city center. We waited for nearly an hour on hard plastic chairs, the smell of stale coffee filling the air. When our names were called, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a calm voice sat across from us. Her name was Ms. Harlow. She asked direct questions, the kind that forced me to speak truths I had long tried to soften. Has he been abandoned? Has he been denied food or shelter? Has he been verbally or emotionally mistreated? Yes, I said. My voice shook, but the word was clear. Liam sat beside me silent, but his hand brushed mine under the table. That small gesture gave me courage. I showed her the folder, every piece of evidence I had collected. The texts, the voicemails, the counselor's notes, even screenshots of Eliza's cruel online posts, laughing about finally pushing the parasite out. Ms. Harlow's pen moved quickly across her pad. You are not his legal guardian, she said, but based on this evidence, we can petition for emergency custody. The phrase rolled through me like thunder. Emergency custody. It was not safety forever, but it was a start. Will it work? I asked. It depends on the judge, she said, but your case is strong. When we left the office, the sky was gray, heavy with rain. Liam pulled his hood up, but I could see the way his lips curved just slightly, the first trace of a smile I had seen in weeks. What happens now? He asked. Now, I said, we wait, but we wait on our own terms. That night, I tucked the folder under the mattress and sat by the window with a cup of tea. The city lights blurred through the glass, and for the first time since stepping out of that house, I felt a flicker of power. They had tried to strip me of my voice. They had tried to erase me. But now I had proof. Now I had a chance. The twist was no longer hidden. Liam had not vanished. He had been exiled for caring too much, and in that exile he had found me. We had both been cast out. And together, we would fight our way back into the light. The first rain of spring arrived in sheets, beating against the thin glass of our studio window. The leaks in the frame let in cold drafts that made the small room shiver. Liam sat cross-legged on the mattress, sketchbook balanced on his knees, pencil moving in quick lines that kept him anchored. I watched the curve of his shoulders, the way he hunched forward as if trying to make himself smaller. You are drawing too much, I said gently. He shrugged without looking up, better than thinking. I poured hot water into 2 chipped mugs, the last of the tea bags floating inside. I set one beside him. He took it but did not drink, only warmed his hands on the cup. The quiet between us was heavy but not uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that said more than words. We were together and that mattered. Still, I could see shadows in his eyes. The nights were worst. He tossed, muttered in his sleep, sometimes woke with a start. I never asked what he dreamed about, but I knew. I had dreamed the same dreams after I left. Voices yelling, doors slamming, the sting of exile that clung to your skin long after the door shut behind you. One night, thunder cracked across the city, jolting him awake. He sat up gasping, sweat shining on his forehead. I reached for his hand before he could retreat into himself. You are safe, I whispered. His breathing slowed, but he did not let go of my hand. He looked at me with eyes too old for his age. Do you ever wonder what it would have been like if they had let us stay? Every day, I admitted. Would it have been better? I thought of Clara's sharp words, Eliza's cruel laughter, Marcus's silence. I thought of Vanessa's smirk as she lounged on the couch, enjoying every spark of conflict. Better? No. Easier, maybe, but not better, he nodded slowly. Then I am glad we left. We did not leave, I corrected him softly. We were thrown out. But yes, I am glad too. It was the first time I saw him smile without sadness behind it. Still, outside forces pressed in. Letters arrived in the mail, official stamps glaring at me from the envelopes. Clara had filed for a review, claiming I was unfit to house Liam. They wanted to use the law the same way they had used silence and humiliation, as a weapon. I showed the letter to Ms. Harlow, who pursed her lips but looked confident. We will fight this, she said. The evidence is on your side. But evidence did not quiet the fear that crept in at night. Liam could sense it too. He started locking the door even when we were both inside. He kept his duffel bag packed at the corner of the mattress, as if ready to run again at a moment's notice. One evening, he surprised me by asking, "Do you think Dad ever loved you?" The question froze me. Marcus had been my son before he was their weapon. I remembered holding him as a baby, his small fingers gripping mine, the way he laughed when I spun him around in the park. Love had been there once, but somewhere along the line it had hardened into resentment, sharpened by Clara's voice in his ear. I do not know anymore, I said truthfully. Liam lowered his gaze. Sometimes I think he hates me too. I reached across the table and tilted his chin up. He does not hate you. He hates that you chose truth. Liam blinked, his eyes glistening. Then I will keep choosing it. From that night forward, something shifted between us. He started speaking more, not just about the past, but about dreams for the future. He wanted to finish school, maybe study art. He showed me sketches of buildings, bridges, and streets, places he said he wanted to live one day. I held each page as though it were a fragile treasure. But just as light began to break through, the dark found us again. It was late on a Saturday when the pounding returned. Not Clara, not Marcus. This time, the police. Their flashlights cut through the hallway, their radios crackling. Neighbors peeked from their doors as officers knocked on mine, louder, harder. Liam froze, his sketchbook slipping from his lap. His eyes were wide, his chest rising and falling too fast. I opened the door with trembling hands. "We have a report," one officer said, "that this child is being concealed here." "He is not concealed," I replied firmly. "He is here by choice." The officer's gaze shifted to Liam. "Son, is that true?" Liam swallowed hard, then lifted his chin. "Yes, I do not want to go back." The officer studied him, then me. There was no arrest, no forced removal. They left with a warning that child services would escalate. When the door shut, Liam collapsed onto the bed, shaking. "They will never stop, will they?" I sat beside him, pulling him close. "No," I said quietly, "they will not stop, but neither will we." After the police left, the apartment felt smaller than ever, walls pressing in as if they were listening. Liam sat on the bed with his knees drawn up to his chest, arms wrapped tightly around them. His sketchbook lay on the floor, pages bent, pencil rolling under the dresser. I picked it up and set it back on the mattress beside him. He did not reach for it. His eyes were far away, staring at a place only he could see. "They will drag me back," he whispered. "No," I said firmly. "You do not know that." I sat beside him and touched his shoulder. "I know they will try, but I also know this: you are not alone. They cannot erase that." He pressed his forehead against his knees. "I wish I was older. 18 already. Then they could not touch me." The words cracked something inside me. He was counting down his childhood, rushing to reach safety that should have been his all along. In the days that followed, I tried to restore some rhythm. Mornings with oatmeal, afternoons with homework, evenings with quiet sketching. But the tension never left. Every knock at the door made Liam flinch. Every envelope in the mailbox made my chest tight. One afternoon, as rain drummed against the roof, Liam asked, "Grandma, why did you stay with them so long?" The question caught me off guard. I thought of all the years spent folding their laundry, cooking their meals, shrinking myself smaller and smaller to fit into the corners of their house. Because I thought I had no choice, I admitted. I thought surviving was the same as living. He looked at me, his face soft with something like understanding. "Then you taught me different." I swallowed hard. "No, I think you taught me." The truth was that Liam's presence gave me strength I had never known. Alone, I might have withered in that studio, swallowed by silence. With him beside me, I felt my spine straighten, my hands steady. Together, we were no longer victims. We were survivors. Still, Clara and Marcus did not relent. More letters arrived, each more threatening than the last. Words like custody, removal, and neglect leapt off the page. They wanted to paint me as unstable, as unfit. They wanted to erase the reality of why Liam had left them in the first place. I met with Ms. Harlow again, the folder of evidence growing heavier with each visit. She looked me in the eye, her voice calm but unwavering. "You need to prepare for court. They are serious." Court. The word made my stomach twist, but I nodded. That night, I told Liam the truth. "They want to take this to a judge." He stared at me wide-eyed. "What if the judge sends me back?" "Then we tell the truth," I said. "We show them everything. Your drawings, your words, the notes from your counselor. We show them you are not safe there." He shook his head. "They will lie. They are good at lying." "Yes," I said softly. "But lies cannot stand forever, not against truth that keeps breathing." Liam was quiet for a long time. Then he picked up his sketchbook and tore out a page. He handed it to me. It was a drawing of the night I left. Clara in her robe, Marcus with his arms crossed, Eliza laughing, Vanessa smirking, and me, small and hunched, clutching a bag. Liam had drawn himself in the hallway, earbuds hanging, eyes wide with silence. "This is what I remember," he said. "Show them." I held the page carefully as though it might break. "I will." As days turned into weeks, our nights became a ritual of preparing. I organized documents, labeled files, highlighted texts. Liam sketched and wrote notes in the margins of his drawings, dates, words he remembered, moments burned into him. Our small studio became both a home and a war room. The stress was heavy, but something else grew alongside it. Trust. We began cooking together, laughing at burned pancakes and unevenly cut vegetables. Liam started talking about his future again, about applying to art school. For the first time, hope flickered in the darkness. But the storm was not finished with us. One night, close to midnight, the phone buzzed on the nightstand. I almost ignored it, but the name froze me. Marcus. Against my better judgment, I answered. Mom. His voice was low, almost pleading. We need to talk. There was a pause, then softer. Clara is going to destroy you. The line went silent before I could answer. I sat in the dark, the hum of the city outside, Liam breathing steadily in his sleep. The words echoed in my mind. Clara is going to destroy you. For the first time, I realized the storm ahead would not just be about custody. It would be about survival. The morning of the hearing felt like walking into a storm I had no umbrella for. I barely slept the night before. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Clara's sharp smile, Eliza's mocking laugh, Marcus's silence. By dawn, I sat at the window of the studio with a cup of cold coffee, staring at the street below while the city woke around me. Liam was quiet as he dressed, buttoning his best shirt with trembling fingers. I had ironed it flat on the back of the chair, though the fabric still held faint creases. He tied his sneakers slowly, carefully, as if buying time before the inevitable. When he finally looked at me, his eyes were steady but shadowed. We walked together to the bus stop. The air was heavy with rain, clouds stretched thick and gray across the sky. Neither of us spoke much, but when the bus came and we sat in the rattling seats, Liam slid his hand into mine for just a moment. His palm was cold, but the grip was firm. The courthouse loomed tall and pale, stone walls streaked with water, windows gleaming like watchful eyes. The security guards searched our bags before letting us through, their belts clinking with keys and radios. Inside, the air smelled of polish and damp wool coats. My stomach twisted as we were led into the courtroom. The room itself was smaller than I had imagined from television shows. Wooden benches lined the back, polished tables in the center, a single flag behind the judge's tall chair. But the weight in the air was enormous. Clara was already there, seated at the front with her lawyer. She wore a tailored beige suit and pearls, her hair swept back so tightly it looked painful. She turned when she heard us, her mouth curving into a smile that was less greeting than performance. A smile meant for the judge, not for me. Marcus sat beside her, hunched in his chair, eyes darting to the floor. His suit was wrinkled, his tie crooked, but what unsettled me most was the way he would not look at me or at Liam. He was pretending we were not there, as though ignoring us might erase us. The judge entered, a woman with sharp eyes and a voice that carried easily across the room. She commanded silence with nothing more than her presence. The hearing began with Clara's lawyer, a man with slicked-back hair and a voice like syrup poured over poison. He stood and painted their story as though it were gospel. According to him, they were a stable family, pillars of the community, struggling only because I had interfered. He described Liam as a confused teenager, misled by a grandmother with unstable tendencies. His words dripped with concern that rang false, every sentence a dagger wrapped in velvet. He spoke of concealment, neglect, manipulation. He made me sound like a criminal hiding a child in some dark corner of the city, rather than the woman who had given him the only safe space he had known in years. I wanted to shout, to stand and scream the truth, but Ms. Harlow's hand rested lightly on mine. Wait, her touch said. Trust me. When it was her turn, she rose with calm authority. Her voice was steady, her words clear. She presented our folder of evidence as if it were a shield, laying each piece before the judge. Voicemails where Clara's voice cracked with anger. Texts from Eliza dripping with cruelty. Screenshots of online posts mocking both Liam and me. And letters from Liam's school counselor describing his fear, his withdrawal, his desire to live with me. As the pages turned, I saw Clara's mask falter. For a second, her smile cracked, her jaw tightening. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his seat, rubbing his hands together as if he could wash away the guilt clinging to his skin. The judge's gaze flicked between us and them, eyes sharp, questions sharper. And then she called Liam to the stand. He rose slowly, shoulders stiff, hands trembling. For a moment he looked younger than his 17 years, fragile as glass. But when he opened his mouth, his voice carried clear. He told them about the night I left. How he stood in the hallway, earbuds dangling, listening as they mocked me. How Eliza hurled his belongings into the hallway when he defended me. How Marcus told him to stop being dramatic, as if his pain were only a performance. How Clara stood silent while it all happened. His words painted pictures sharper than any lawyer's argument. When he finished, the courtroom was still. Clara's lawyer tried to twist it. You are angry at your family, aren't you? Angry enough to exaggerate. Liam met his gaze, steady now. I am not angry, I am done. The room seemed to exhale at once. Even the judge leaned back, studying him with a new kind of respect. The hearing ended without resolution. The judge announced she would need more time, more review of the evidence. A decision would come at the next session. We left the courthouse with our heads high, but my body felt weak, my knees trembling. As we walked down the wide steps, I felt Clara's eyes burning into my back. She was not finished. Not by far. Outside, Liam let out a breath like he had been holding it for hours. "Did I do okay?" he asked. I squeezed his hand. "You did more than okay. You told the truth." He nodded, but his eyes still carried doubt. Truth does not always win, they seem to say. That night, back in the studio, he drew again. This time he sketched the courtroom. The judge's sharp eyes, Clara's brittle smile, Marcus hunched low, and me with my hand on his shoulder. He taped the drawing to the wall, a reminder that even under their shadow, we had stood together. But shadows deepen when challenged. The phone calls resumed, sharper, more venomous. Clara's voice hissing through voicemail. "You think you can win this, but you will lose everything." And one night, a different voice arrived. Low, unfamiliar, dangerous. "You better stop this. You do not know who you are dealing with." I sat in the dark after listening, phone trembling in my hand. They were not just fighting for Liam anymore. They were fighting to bury us. After the first hearing, I thought maybe the silence would return for a while, but instead the days grew heavier. Clara and her lawyer filed motion after motion, each letter arriving in crisp envelopes that made my chest tighten before I even opened them. Their words were cold, crafted with precision: removal, custody, neglect, instability. Each envelope was a reminder that Clara did not just want Liam back under her roof. She wanted me erased, silenced, painted as a danger. Ms. Harlow prepared me for the next round. She was methodical, patient, yet there was steel in her voice. "They are going to attack your credibility, Jordan. They will not just question your choices, they will question your very stability." I nodded, though fear burned in my stomach. Stability had always been a fragile word in my life. I had worked, sacrificed, survived. But Clara's wealth, her polished home, her rehearsed smiles, those were the images that judges liked to see. Liam sensed my unease. He stayed close in those days, sketching in silence, slipping notes onto the table. Small reminders in his careful handwriting: "You kept me safe. You are the reason I can breathe." The morning of the second hearing, the rain had cleared. The sky was pale blue, almost mocking in its brightness. We walked into the courthouse again, and once more Clara was already there, suit sharper, smile tighter. Marcus sat with his head bowed, hands clasped together like a penitent man who had already chosen his silence. This time, Clara took the stand herself. Her voice was smooth, rehearsed, dripping with grief she did not feel. She spoke of me as though I were a stranger, painting me as unstable, prone to confusion, a woman who had overstepped her place. She told the court she feared for Liam's safety, that I had twisted him against his family. Her words were poison sweetened with sugar. She even let tears fall at the edges of her eyes, perfectly timed for when the judge looked her way. I sat frozen, fury burning through me, but I kept silent. When it was our turn, Ms. Harlow rose slowly, her eyes locked on Clara. "Is it true," she asked, "that you told Liam to leave your house if he defended his grandmother?" Clara's smile wavered. "I never said that. We submitted screenshots of Eliza's online posts, boasting about finally pushing the parasite out. We played the voicemails of Clara's own voice, sharp with contempt, demanding I stop keeping him." The judge's gaze hardened. Then came the moment that shifted the air. Mrs. Reed, the school counselor, testified. She spoke calmly, firmly, about Liam's words in her office. How he told her his sister called him weak, how his father dismissed him, how his grandmother was the only place he felt safe. Her words cracked through Clara's performance like lightning. Marcus shifted in his seat, eyes darting to me for the first time. His lips parted, but no words came. Still, Clara did not break. She leaned forward, her voice sharp. "He is a teenager. Teenagers exaggerate. He does not know what is best for him." The judge raised a hand for silence. "That is enough, Mrs. Hamilton." The room fell quiet. We left the courthouse again without resolution, but this time I felt the ground shift beneath Clara's feet. She still smiled, but it was tighter, forced. She brushed past me in the hallway, her perfume sharp in my nose. "You cannot win," she hissed. "You think you know the truth, but there are things you do not understand." Her words rattled in me all the way home. Things I do not understand. That night, Liam sat at the table sketching again. He was drawing the courthouse this time, but in the shadows of the benches he sketched figures we had not seen. Hidden faces, blurred and watching. When I asked him why, he shrugged. "Because it feels like there is more going on than they are telling us." I stared at the page, chilled. Maybe he was right. Later, as Liam slept, I replayed Clara's parting words in my mind, not just a threat, but a warning. And for the first time, I wondered if the battle was not only about custody. If there were secrets buried deeper, waiting to shatter everything once revealed. I sat awake until dawn, the city quiet outside, and whispered to myself the same word I had taped above the sink weeks ago. Breathe. The week before the final hearing felt like walking across thin ice. Every sound, every letter in the mailbox, every unknown knock at the door made my chest seize. Liam stayed close, carrying his duffel bag to school and back like armor. He said it was habit now, he never wanted to be caught without a way out again. At night we prepared. I organized documents into neat piles, highlighting texts and voicemails until my eyes blurred. Liam drew not for escape this time but for evidence. He filled pages with sketches of rooms, faces, even conversations. He called them memory maps. One evening, as he slid a drawing across the table, I froze. He had drawn Marcus, his own father, standing in the kitchen, arms crossed, mouth tight. Around him, Liam had written words he remembered. Stop being dramatic. You will regret this. Keep your mouth shut. Did he really say all that? I whispered. Liam nodded. That night after they kicked you out, the words were daggers, sharper for being spoken by his own father. I tucked the drawing into the folder, my hand trembling. Proof. Not just paper or texts. Proof born from memory. But still, Clara's shadow grew longer. She called again, her voice colder than before. Jordan, you're tearing this family apart. Do you even understand what you're doing? I almost hung up, but something in her tone stopped me. Beneath the fury there was something else, fear. What are you hiding, Clara? I asked quietly. Silence. Then she hissed, you will find out soon enough. The line went dead. The words followed me into sleep, curling into my dreams like smoke. I woke with a start to find Liam sitting at the window, sketchbook open on his lap. He looked pale in the gray dawn light. Could not sleep? I asked. He shook his head. I keep hearing her voice. Me too. The day of the next court session arrived with skies heavy and dark. The courthouse felt different this time, buzzing with whispers even before we entered. People lingered in the hallway, eyes flicking toward Clara and me as though expecting a spectacle. Inside, Clara looked sharper than ever. Her suit was darker, her hair pinned higher, her smile thinner. Marcus sat beside her, hollow-eyed, as though he had not slept either. The judge entered, her gavel cracking against the desk. Today, she said, we will hear closing statements and any final witnesses. Final witnesses. The words sent a shiver through me. Who else could Clara possibly summon? Her lawyer stood first, weaving his tale again. Stable home, confused teenager, meddling grandmother. But then he announced something new. The family has requested testimony from a medical professional. The doors opened, and a man in a crisp suit stepped in, carrying a folder thick with papers. His presence filled the room. He introduced himself as a psychiatrist who had reviewed records of both Liam and me. My heart pounded. I had never met him. What records could he possibly hold? He spoke calmly, clinically. According to him, Liam was impressionable and easily swayed. According to him, I was unstable, prone to delusions of persecution. He used words like manipulation, codependency, emotional contagion. Each word was a stone thrown into the room, and Clara sat straighter with everyone. Ms. Harlow rose swiftly. Doctor, she said, have you ever spoken to my client? No. Have you ever met Liam Hamilton? No. Then tell me, what exactly are you basing these claims on? The doctor hesitated. I was given access to reports provided by the family. Reports. My chest went tight. Fabrications dressed as fact. The judge's eyes narrowed. Without direct evaluation, this testimony holds limited weight. Still, the damage was done. Doubt had been seated in the air, clinging like smoke. When Liam was called again, he stood straighter this time. He looked the doctor in the eye and said firmly, I know who I am. I know what happened. I am not confused. The room went still. Even the judge seemed moved. But Clara leaned close to Marcus, whispering something that made his face pale. He rubbed his hands together, eyes dropping to the table. For the first time, I saw cracks in his silence, fear bleeding through. After court ended, as we stepped into the hallway, Clara brushed past me again. Her voice was low, meant only for me. You really want the truth? Then be ready. It will ruin you. Her heels clicked against the tile as she walked away, Marcus trailing behind like a shadow that had lost its shape. I stood frozen, Liam beside me, his eyes wide. What truth? He whispered. I did not answer because I did not know, but in my bones I felt it. The storm was not about custody alone. Something else was buried beneath their rage, something they feared more than losing Liam. And whatever it was about to break. That night the studio felt colder than ever, though the heater rattled in the corner. Liam sat on the bed, his sketchbook open but untouched. His pencil rested in his hand, unmoving. His eyes were fixed on the page as though it might reveal an answer he could not find. "What truth do you think she meant?" he asked finally. I shook my head. "I do not know." He looked at me then, his expression older than his years. "She is afraid. That is why she is lashing out. People only talk like that when they are hiding something." His words struck me harder than any lawyer's speech. I wanted to protect him from that kind of wisdom, but he had already learned it the hard way. The next day, the whispers started. Not from Clara this time, but from the people around us. A woman at the courthouse glanced at me with pity and whispered to another. A man in the hallway shook his head when he saw Clara and Marcus together. Something had shifted. When we returned home, I found an envelope slipped under the door. No return address. No stamps, just my name in messy handwriting. I opened it with shaking fingers. Inside was a single sheet of paper. It held copies of financial documents, transactions, withdrawals, signatures. At first they meant nothing to me, but then my eyes caught the names. Clara's signature, Marcus's approval, money drawn from an account under Liam's name. My stomach turned. They had used him. His disability support, the very lifeline that kept him fed and clothed, had been siphoned. Clara's talk of survival, of managing bills, of sacrifices, it was all built on money that was never hers to take. I spread the papers on the table, my hands trembling. Liam leaned over my shoulder, reading. His face drained of color. "They used me," he whispered. "They lived off me." I could not speak. The truth pressed down so hard I could barely breathe. All those years of Clara's lectures about responsibility, Marcus's silence, Eliza's mockery, it was all to cover the fact that they were parasites feeding off the very child they had thrown out. The pieces fell together too quickly, too painfully. That was why Clara had panicked when I spoke honestly on that phone call months ago. That was why benefits had been frozen. That was why she blamed me. My truth had threatened to expose everything. It was never about me being careless. It was never about me being a burden. It was about money, control, power. Liam gripped the papers so tightly his knuckles went white. They said I was dramatic. They said I was weak, but they needed me. I pulled him close, his shoulders shaking. "You are not weak. They were afraid of you seeing the truth." His voice broke. "Then I hope the judge sees it too." That night I could not sleep. I sat at the table with the papers spread before me, staring at the proof of their betrayal. Clara's secret was not just cruelty, it was theft. She had built her world on Liam's back and pretended it was strength. In the gray light of morning, I called Miss Harlow. Her voice sharpened as soon as I explained. "Bring everything," she said. "This changes the case." When we arrived at her office, Liam carried the papers in a folder pressed against his chest. He sat quietly while I laid them out across her desk. She studied them with quick eyes, her pen scratching across notes. "This is fraud," she said finally. "If we can prove they misused his funds, it will not just undermine their custody claim. It could open a criminal investigation." Liam's eyes widened. "They could go to jail? Possibly." For the first time in weeks, I saw something in his face that looked like hope. But hope is fragile. That evening, Clara called again. Her voice was no longer smooth, no longer controlled. It was sharp, frayed, desperate. "You think you are clever, Jordan, but you do not understand. You are tearing down everything we built." I almost laughed, bitter and raw. "Everything you built was on lies." There was silence. Then she whispered, "You will regret this. We all will." The line went dead, leaving the room filled with her ghost. Liam watched me, his face pale. "She knows we found something," he said. "Yes," I whispered. "And now she will do anything to bury it." The storm had broken. The truth was out in the open, wild and unstoppable. But I knew storms destroy as much as they reveal. And what waited in the final hearing would not be a simple victory. It would be war. The morning of the final hearing carried a weight so thick it seemed to press against the very air. Liam and I walked to the courthouse together, the folder of documents clutched tightly in my hands. The sky was a pale winter gray, though spring was nearly here, clouds hanging low as though the city itself was holding its breath. Liam walked close beside me, his hood pulled up. He did not speak much, but his jaw was set in a way that told me he was ready. This was no longer just about where he would live. It was about the truth, the kind that could burn everything Clara had built to ash. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with quiet tension. Reporters sat at the back now, pens poised, cameras tucked discreetly at their sides. News had spread about the Hamilton custody battle, whispers of secrets and lies leaking beyond the courthouse walls. Clara was already there, draped in another sharp suit, her pearl earrings gleaming, but the confidence in her face had thinned. Marcus sat beside her, his hands clasped tightly in his lap, knuckles pale. He looked smaller than I had ever seen him, his silence now heavy with shame. The judge entered, her gavel striking once. Today, she announced, we will hear final testimony and review all evidence. A decision will be rendered. Clara's lawyer rose first, his voice as smooth as ever. He painted me again as unstable, manipulating Liam, undermining a family who only wanted stability. His words slid across the room like oil. Then it was our turn. Ms. Harlow stood, steady as stone. She called Liam first. He rose and walked to the stand, his hands shaking but his voice clear. He spoke again of the night I left, of Eliza's cruelty, of Marcus's silence, of Clara's command to stay quiet. His words carried no exaggeration, no malice, only truth. When Clara's lawyer tried to corner him, asking if he was angry, Liam gave the same answer as before. I am not angry. I am done. The courtroom held its breath. Then Ms. Harlow turned to the judge. Your Honor, we have new evidence. My heart pounded as I handed over the folder. Financial records, signatures, transactions, all showing Clara and Marcus had siphoned funds meant for Liam's support. Fraud not only against him, but against the system they had so proudly claimed to manage. The judge's eyes scanned the pages. Clara's face drained of color. For the first time, her smile broke entirely. Explain this, the judge demanded. Clara's lawyer shifted uncomfortably, but she spoke first, her voice sharp, desperate. We managed those funds for the household. It was survival. We had no choice. You had a choice, Ms. Harlow countered. And you chose to live off a child while ridiculing him, while discarding him when he defended the one person who protected him. The judge's gavel struck for order as voices rose. Clara tried to defend herself, but her words came frantic now, spilling too fast. Marcus stared at the table, silent, his hands covering his face. The twist was no longer hidden. It was laid bare for the room to see. This was never about Liam being confused or me being unstable. It was about money, about control, about power built on exploitation. The judge's face was stern as she looked at Clara. These are serious allegations. They will require investigation beyond this custody case. Clara's composure cracked. She leaned forward, eyes blazing at me. You think you have won, Jordan? You think truth will save you? You do not know the whole story. Her voice rose, desperate, almost wild. You were never supposed to be here. None of this was supposed to happen. The room erupted in murmurs. The judge demanded silence, but the words hung heavy in the air. Never supposed to be here. Beside me, Liam whispered, What does she mean? I did not know, but I felt the ground shift again. Clara's secret was not only about money. There was something deeper still, something about me. And I realized with a chill that the final blow of this battle had not yet been struck. The judge called for order again, her gavel striking hard against the desk. The murmurs in the courtroom faded, but Clara's words lingered like smoke. You were never supposed to be here. I felt my stomach turn. What did she mean? Ms. Harlow pressed forward with the financial documents, insisting they be entered into official record. The judge agreed, her expression severe. Clara's lawyer tried to object, but the judge silenced him with a single look. And then, in a moment no one expected, Marcus rose from his seat. His voice cracked when he spoke. Enough. The room stilled. Marcus looked at Clara, then at me, then at Liam. His hands trembled at his sides. I cannot do this anymore. I cannot keep lying. Clara's head snapped toward him, her eyes wide with fury. Sit down, she hissed. But he did not sit. He turned toward the judge, his voice shaking but growing steadier with every word. She is right. We used Liam's benefits. We lived off them for years. When Jordan slipped on that phone call, it all came crashing down. That is why Clara turned on her. That is why she turned on Liam, because the truth was about to surface. The words landed like thunder. Clara gasped, her carefully crafted mask shattering. She reached for his arm, but he pulled away. And there is more, Marcus said, his eyes meeting mine at last, my breath caught. Jordan, he whispered, I should have told you long ago. Clara made me swear to stay silent. I shook my head, barely able to breathe. Told me what? His lips parted, his face pale. You are not just Liam's grandmother. The room tilted around me. My pulse roared in my ears. Marcus's voice cracked. You are his mother. The world stopped. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. The judge's gavel struck again, but the sound was distant, muffled as though I were underwater. Mother. The word hit me like a physical blow. I stared at Liam, at his wide eyes, his trembling hands. He looked from Marcus to me, his mouth opening, closing, no sound escaping. It cannot be true, I thought. It cannot. But deep inside, something stirred, memories, fragments, pieces of a puzzle I had locked away. The years of Clara's control, her insistence on raising Marcus's children herself, the way she had always kept me in the shadows. The way Liam's face sometimes mirrored mine in expressions too familiar to be coincidence. Clara rose to her feet, her voice shrill. "He is lying. He is trying to destroy us." She pointed a shaking finger at me. "You are nothing. You have always been nothing." Marcus turned to her, his voice breaking. "Tell them, Clara. Tell them what you did." Her lips trembled, but no words came. The judge leaned forward, her eyes sharp. "Enough. This matter has gone far beyond custody. These allegations will be investigated thoroughly." I sat frozen, my heart pounding, my mind a storm. Liam's eyes found mine, pleading, desperate. "Is it true?" I could not speak. Not yet. The judge adjourned the hearing, gavel striking, voices rising all around us. Reporters scrambled for the door, cameras flashing. Clara shouted, Marcus wept, and Liam stood beside me, his hand clutching mine like an anchor in a sea that had just split open. Outside the courthouse, the air was cold and sharp. Liam pulled at my sleeve. "Grandma, no, Mom, what does this mean?" The words stung and healed at once. I wrapped my arms around him, holding him as though the world might tear him away. "It means," I whispered, "that the truth is finally ours." He trembled in my arms, then whispered back, "Then let them never take it again." In the days that followed, the system churned. Investigations opened. Reporters hounded Clara, her name dragged through headlines about fraud and family secrets. Marcus disappeared from the public eye, his silence finally broken too late to shield her. But in our small studio, something new grew in the cracks of all that had shattered. Liam sketched not shadows this time, but light, sunrise through the crooked window, two figures sitting side by side, tape holding the pages to the wall. For the first time, I saw hope not as a fragile thing, but as something fierce. We had been cast out. We had been mocked, silenced, erased. But together, truth had risen, wild and unstoppable. And though the storm had left scars, it had also left us standing, not just as survivors, but as mother and son, ashes behind us, light ahead.